Ladies and gentlemen, you see that map, ladies and gentlemen? Pete Hegseth herding cats. There's BiBi at the bottom, and that's his literal rung where he'll be. Erdogan there. That is the new Middle East, with the US taking over Israel, putting giant bases in, and maybe we'll have some semblance of peace in the region. Messiah comes. And there's former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad keeping everyone on their toes, rebuilding his country, and most likely trading with the United States. And I mean reluctantly, ever so reluctantly. But the difference with Mahmoud Ahmadinejad to the rest of the whores is he doesn't have a Swiss bank account, he's never been to London, he doesn't ski in the ski fields, and he's a real Iranian nationalist, a man whose speeches mimic the American carnage speech given by Donald Trump. He is a nationalist, and he will do deals for the benefit of his country. Today, we shall be talking about Turkey. What is Turkey about, and where does that fit into the grand chessboard we see unfolding? You're going to learn exactly what Turkey is about. It's a technology spreader. It's going to maintain Russia into the next 10 or 20 years with new technology so it can threaten the EU, the sworn enemy of the United States.
The European Union's it was formed in order to screw the United States. I mean, look, let's be honest.
Screw the United States indeed. So you see that map popping up? The Makinda World Island, EU, Netanyahu, Putin and China, all playing their role. The battle for Eurasia, the Makinda World Island, and that is what Turkey is about right now. That is what the Straits of Hormuz are about right now. Make no mistake, we will listen to Trump again. That is a declaration of war against the EU. It's a declaration of war against those castle-dwelling CIA crackers in Armani. It's a war against the Hofjuden. It's a war against those 13 families of Europe, the elite inbreds, the old Habsburg, the old Viennese families married into the Hofjuden, the court Jews of Europe. Nothing exemplifies this better than the picture of Gerhard Schroeder, your typical archetypal cracker in Armani, Hofjuden, believes he is a direct descendant of King David, friend of David and Evelyn de Rothschild. He's on the board of Rothschild. He's also on the board of Russia's Gazprom, and he is absolutely best friends, Frankfurt schoolboy, with Vladimir Putin. And when you understand that image, you understand who rules, and you understand who the Trump administration, the Pentagon, a bunch of retired generals, and a bunch of billionaires have declared war via the old Skull and Bones network on the European Union and the City of London.
But when we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. And I say ourselves because I fundamentally believe that we are on the same team. We must do more than talk about democratic values, we must live them.
Understand that image, you will grasp it all. One more time from good old President Trump.
The European Union's it was formed in order to screw the United States. I mean, look, let's be honest.
Okay, that was a declaration of war, and you've never heard anyone even mention it. It's like it didn't happen. That was incredible. Back to the video. China must be maintained. This is the report from Iron Mountain. Before they switch into space exploration, this is the grand picture of what Turkey is about. The heavily footnoted report concluded that peace was not in the interest of a stable society, that even if a lasting peace could be achieved, it would almost certainly not be in the best interests of society to achieve it. War was a part of the economy. Therefore, it was necessary to conceive a state of war for a stable economy. The government, the group theorized, would not exist without war, and nation-states existed in order to wage war. War served the vital function of diverting collective aggression. They recommended credible substitutes and paying a blood price to emulate the economic functions of war. Prospective government-devised alternatives to war included reports of alien life forms, the reintroduction of a euphemized form of slavery consistent with modern technology and political processes, and one deemed particularly promising in gaining the attention of the malleable masses, the threat of gross pollution of the environment.
How dare you!
The report from Iron Mountain, 1967. Space exploration as the new motivator behind economic stimulus and control of populations. This is the report from Iron Mountain unfolding. They don't know what else to do, and it's going to be up to us to learn the big picture theater, how it's all working, how the economy operates, and how these things are not easily solved. How our day-to-day lives, the milk in the fridge, the bread on the shelf, is dependent on the drug trade and drug money flows. It's dependent on war production and high technology taxpayer subsidies to the military-industrial complex worldwide to build the original DARPA strategic Hamlet system, as the report from Iron Mountain told us, the 1967 parody document, which the Pentagon bought 5,000 copies of. We need new ways to keep the population in check, and we will have ecological disasters. Does that sound familiar? We will have reports of alien life forms. And above all, we will have a new euphemized form of slavery, a new technical capacity to keep people busy in the event of peace breaking out worldwide. It's called the Universal Basic Income and UN Smart Cities. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a lot to unpack, and it's all going to center on brilliant, amazing Turkey, where my sister lived for a year and learnt Turkish. She loved it. She says it's stunning. God bless Turkey. Maybe one day it will be free with the rest of us. Let us attend.
In cyber is a real domain of power. In cyber is a real domain of power.
Marco, is Brendan O'Connell going to be nice to me when discussing the new America-Turkey relationship?
O'Connell can't stand you, boss, but then neither can we. However, word on the street is he is very happy with Graham's strategy. And Mary Silva just got another endorsement.
Oh, Rabbi Schneerson have mercy. How could she not love me? Oh well, at least O'Connell and Congressional Candidate Mary Silva love my foreign policy. You can't have everything. Okay, let's get the O'Connell show on the road.
Yes, Mr. President, I, Brendan O'Connell, am going to be very mean to you and J.D. Vance and others. Ladies and gentlemen, there are no white hats. There's only a white shirt. I'm in a white kind of a mood this week. I was in my black shirts previously, but there are no white hats here. Remember, I'm all about America. America. The most incredible country God ever invented. America. With a gigantic, powerful military-industrial complex. America. Yeah. Aircraft carrier battle groups, controls all the choke points of the world. Massive high technology base. America! Yeah! And it also just happens to have the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the US Constitution, the most amazing, divinely inspired political document ever put on God's green earth. Now, if you can wake up the US citizenry to accept their role and engage in the daily political grind, as Mary Silva, congressional candidate, is doing, just got another endorsement.
Okay, I just handed out 50 flyers in 5 minutes. I should have had more printed. Oh my God, that was wild.
Mary Silva cannot get into Congress! Citizens of America, let me be frank with you. Right now, you're all up in arms about your military merging with Israel's. You think that this cooperation initiative will somehow allow Israel to, let's say, remote control your F-35 or sneak its way into your critical infrastructure that will get into your communications, your banks, your databases, maybe even your air traffic control systems. But I'll let you in on a little secret. We already did that. Over 50 years ago!
Well, I got some pretty important information for you.
What is that?
It's about Israel.
Okay, what about it?
The Israeli press has been warning us about this Russian penetration of Israel. We've got files KGB infiltrated Israel at the highest levels.
Oh, wow.
And all of our tech companies are being infiltrated by Israeli military intelligence. So check this out.
We took your most advanced technologies, whether it be Intel, Microsoft, TSMC, ASML, Qualcomm, and what we did was we outsourced them, we hacked them, Basically, we built a Trojan horse with your tax dollars and sold it back to you.
Would you like to learn about the penetration of our country? There's just news articles that will help you. Yep, it'll help you understand the real problem here that we're dealing with. Thank you. Would you like to learn about the penetration of our country? There you go. It's information about the penetration of our country, backdooring through the critical infrastructure, and how it happened.
But the funniest part to me, personally, is that your ruling oligarchs already know we Israelis are in every single nook and cranny of your critical infrastructure, top to bottom. But they are too afraid to admit it, because then you might wonder, what good are your $100 billion a year intelligence agencies? It's actually the biggest espionage scandal in the history of the world, if you think about it.
This was the flyer. And I just said, well, you guys can watch it, but I just said, would you like to learn about the backdooring of our country via technology? Very simple, and people were ready and willing to take it. So this is the type of event you should go to really help people understand what's happening.
Then maybe we can pull ourselves out of this giant, disgusting mess we're all in. The only other way is to just pack it all in, sell coffee mugs, and, don't forget to like and subscribe. And we await the end and the universal basic income and the UN Smart City program, which I assure you they still have plans for. All we have is America, so we better all get pro-America, not pro-Trump, not pro-Democrat, not pro-globalist, not pro-anti-globalist, pro-America Bill of Rights, Constitution, Declaration of Independence, that I must be free, you also must be free. This is the system that terrifies the elites. It terrifies those old families of Europe as they build theocratic societies and they fund dictators and do all their other activities and then tell us, you're all going to die, centralized command and control. You're all going to die, centralized command and control. And now we face the terror of automated systems, automated killing machines, and removing the human element that has been keeping us from the complete tyranny. They're trying to remove the human element from everything, including the CIA analysts, FBI analysts, law enforcement, the court system. They're trying to remove human beings from that layer where people have children too. They want to live in peace too. And when they remove that human layer, we are done and we are done. I don't believe that's going to happen. The rebellion's already begun. However, we might want to, like packing a reserve parachute, you might want to understand that there also needs to be a groundswell of popular opinion, popular narratives, and popular, not economic activity, but political activity, which we have been pushing night and day. Before we do any more analysis on Turkey, we have to talk about this woman. Do you know who that is? Probably not. She's disappeared a lot from public view. That's Sibel Edmonds. She's a Turkish American. She was an FBI translator who exposed so much of the Turkey-Israel-America collusion. Drug trafficking, the weapons trade, nuclear proliferation, drug money laundering. You don't remember this because you're all woke retard. No, sorry, I'm being mean. You have to be an OG. You have to be an old guy. The documentary came out in 2006 called Kill the Messenger. No, not the movie about the great Gary Webb. This is Sibel Edmonds. We're going to watch segments of this documentary. It came out in 2006 and absolutely eviscerated. So we have to understand the dynamics of Turkey. Turkey and Israel have been operating as one since forever, since Ataturk, the Turkish Jew born in Salonika, right? Ataturk was a Jew and he was in love with England, loved England, complete Anglophile. Then Winston Churchill invaded, of course, and if you're an Australian or a Brit, you know all about Anzac Cove and Gallipoli. Now, that was actually a horrible little battle and war at the beginning of World War I. It wasn't very nice. However, it was slightly chivalrous. And every year on Anzac Day, Australians and some British, of course, go over to Turkey and commemorate the mass slaughter that went on. It's done in good nature. And the Turks are obviously very welcoming of a bunch of drunken bum Brits and Australians. My sister loved Turkey. She was there for a year in the 90s. My sister traveled for 2 years before smartphones and GPS location data and maps, GPS maps and she backpacked around the world, and she worked for a very wealthy Turkish family. She told me she just adored Turkey. She learnt Turkish. She smuggled back a quite an expensive, like a 700 Australian dollars, or we're roughly Canadian dollars, and she smuggled that back in her carry-on luggage. She went to sell it at a rug dealer in Perth, a Turkish rug dealer, and they started blabbing. They would con her out of her money, some dumb blonde. And of course, my sister spoke Turkish. So could you imagine their shock as this dumb blonde Australian just starts, and my sister would rip into them. She has, you know what I'm like. Imagine my sister, may she rest in peace, Jackie, ripped into them, and she got a very good deal on that Turkish rug. Anyway, she raved about Turkey, how much she loved it. The meeting of East and West. It is definitely a very unique and very interesting country. But by God, it has been in bed with Israel and the Zionist movement from day dot. So let's stop the garbage. While the population is absolutely anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, anti-Zionist, without question, the government has been in the pocket, just like the Iranian elites, just like the Russian elites. You know, they're all in bed together. All right, let's just quit it now. Let's just quit it. So let's see Turkey in the context of what's been going on with the F-35 and the cooperation and understanding the grand chessboard with Turkey. This is a power move. This is a good move. America will be deeply embedded with Turkey, and that's wonderful news. And Israel is paid for a reason, and it is not an act. Likud is not upset about this. The City of London, the Russia-Israel axis, City of London, is very upset about this. But at the same time, let's look at the history of these countries, and we'll understand it through the great work of Sibel Edmonds. Now, the video is very old and in low quality. I have a high quality version somewhere. I recorded this off the television. This was an Australian production, would you believe, in league with others, in 2006. Was it 2005? I remember where I was, Corbett Street, Scarborough, a suburb of Perth, Western Australia. Not too far from where Virginia Giuffre was living on the beautiful west coast of Western Australia, Perth, Western Australia, northern suburbs. Lo and behold, this was an extremely damaging video. It goes into detail of Israeli espionage, spying, weapons trade, nuclear proliferation. You're going to hear how Israel assisted via South Africa to get trigger switches into Pakistan. Imagine everyone, Israel is assisting Pakistan, a Muslim country, to get a nuclear weapon. Fancy that. Fancy that. That might sound like Iran being assisted in getting a nuclear weapon by Israel. There's a method to their madness, always. Always. And you will see it in this incredible documentary. And when I recorded it and I tried to upload to Google Video when it was not, it would just delete immediately. You try to put it on YouTube, delete it immediately. It was like 2014 before you could get that video to stay up. That's how important this video is. I will, of course, interrupt continuously and annoy you.
Sibel Edmonds, born to a Turkish family in Iran, spent 6 months as a translator for the FBI. It put her at the heart of a major intelligence scandal. In June 2002, the scandal broke in the Washington Post. Sibel and a colleague, John Cole, alleged that spies had infiltrated the FBI Language Services section.
Who might they be?
It all started the previous year. One morning in September 2001.
Watch how it all ties in.
I never planned to be a language specialist. This was not what I was planning.
Do not go down the ground. You will get trapped. You will get trapped.
4 days after September 11, I got this phone call and they said they really needed my services and they had completed the background check and when could I start? There were all these documents, there were all these audio tapes that needed to be translated. There were all these people who had been detained and they needed to interrogate them and most of these people didn't speak English.
Our first effort is to identify any associates related to the hijackers.
Victory will come over time.
Responded immediately, more than
and at that point, the chaos of that time period with September 11, and it was, How could you say no?
Okay, moving right along. As you can see behind me, Gemini AI, as you know, horrible AI, has very kindly found every reference to Israel and Turkey in the video for me. I love freaking AI. So I'm sure there's a lot of people don't want you using it. Don't worry about that. Let's go to FBI monitoring. The FBI recruited Sibel to translate wiretaps of targets related to Turkey.
Translate wiretaps in Turkish that it had recorded inside the United States. The targets were suspected of espionage or of having links with terrorist organizations.
And the espionage all runs back to Israel, which is, of course, City of London. Just remember that. So this is the Turkish role since forever. Heavily in with the British. Don't worry about that.
By December 2001, Sibel had been working at the FBI for 2 months. Then, one Sunday morning, she and her husband Matthew got a call that would turn their lives upside down.
Sibel had been working for the FBI about 2 months after the 9/11 occurrence. And one Sunday morning, we received a call. One of the other translators in the department where she worked in the FBI called up and said that she would like to come over and introduce her husband to us. We had never met her husband. My wife, of course, had met the other translator. Her name was Melik Jan Dickerson. Her husband's name was Douglas Dickerson.
I was seated here. Sibel was seated beside me. Melik Dickerson was seated in his chair here, and Douglas Dickerson was seated over here.
The husband did most of the talking. And he started out right away giving a background, telling us who he was. He had worked for the Air Force both in Turkey and in some of the Central Asian republics.
He described how they had met in Turkey, the fact that he had been in Turkey, the fact that he was in the arms procurement business. He worked for the government.
Liaison with various countries in the region, doing weapons procurement.
But fairly rapidly, he started to describe the fact that he had friends in the Turkish community.
He wanted to know whether or not...
Oh, wait till we get to Israel.
We knew about some of the Turkish organizations, and I said that, well, I thought you need to have some sort of business relationship with Turkey or a reason to be a member of that organization. He at that point said,
you, Sibel, all you have to do is tell them who you are and what you do, and you can be a member of that organization, and then you can retire with a very good life.
So this is the America-Turkish Council, all right? This is all Israelis / City of London. These are globalists. Just like the globalists in Israel, the globalists in Moscow, the globalists in Ankara, Turkey, the globalists in London Central Bank down at Canary Wharf at the City of London, the globalists in Paris, France, you know, Macron's France, David and Evelyn de Rothschild, you know, Gerhard Schroeder sits on the board of Rothschild and he sits on the board of Gazprom, a Russian company, best friends with Vladimir Putin. Do you see the network? Let's move on to the next bit. This is the America-Turkish Council, Washington-based lobby group that became a focus of Sibel's investigation.
It was a Washington-based lobby group, the American Turkish Council, or ATC.
The chairman of the American Turkish Council. Are we ready to run that? And we'll serve the dessert at the same time.
The ATC's offices are on 14th Street in Washington, D.C. It holds its annual conference across town in the Mandarin Oriental Hotel.
Turkey. This is modern Turkey.
They're all in Qatar, and Oman, and Dubai, Saudi.
The aim of the ATC is to promote business between Turkey and the United States.
Geographically, connecting Asia to Europe and the Middle East to Africa strengthens Turkey as a center of intercontinental information, technology.
It is. I mean, Turkey is sitting on the Bosphorus Straits, the Dardanelles, that access to the sea. It is a vital geostrategic hub, just like the Straits of Hormuz in Iran is a vital geostrategic hub. And who do you think controls that? Now, I'll let you in on the secret. The Trump administration, forget the clown Trump, the Trump administration, which is heritage and a bunch of billionaires, and the Pentagon just took over the Straits of Hormuz and they're playing games with the European access to energy and the Chinese access to energy. So this apparently is going to roll on forever. And now we have Turkey. Now they're pulling Turkey out of the globalist control. Doesn't make it wonderful. You can get this. This is very good from a cold, hard, Kissinger-esque realpolitik geopolitical angle. United States elites, not the globalists are losing one choke point after another. Let's move on to the next bit. The Strategic Ties discusses the military and diplomatic relationship between the US and Turkey, including the country's role in US foreign policy.
Received more than $12 billion worth of military assistance from the US. A grateful Ankara opened its airspace to Israel. The Anatolian Plateau, bordering both Syria and Iran, was a godsend for Israel.
That's a good bit here. That's a good bit.
By the mid-90s, the triangle of the United States, Israel and Turkey had entered its golden age. Giraldi identifies two figures of the neoconservative right as typical of the American allies of Turkey and Israel. The charismatic Richard Pearl, nicknamed the Prince of Darkness, and his protege, Douglas Feith.
I wonder if they'd ever been to Epstein Island or one of the dozens of similar Israel or Turkey runs these things. You're so infiltrated, America. It's so deep.
A fervent supporter of Israeli settlers in the West Bank and Gaza.
Oh, yeah, Sharon.
Both were former Pentagon officials, and both played a pivotal part in the US-Turkish-Israeli triangle.
Douglas Feith was a paid consultant for the government of Turkey in the late 1980s and into the early 1990s, and Richard Pearl was working as one of his consultants also on the Turkish project. Both of these individuals are closely tied to defense industries in Israel. Richard Pearl is very well known to the intelligence community, and I would suspect that most people in the intelligence community who know about him and his story would say that basically he's an agent of influence for the state of Israel.
Richard Pearl was first investigated for his links with Israel in 1970. He was wiretapped by the FBI.
Look at that, everyone. There's the FBI and the CIA doing their jobs. There you go. See? That's what they want to automate, those systems. So you can't go and investigate these people with human beings who are doing their job.
It is said that in 1983, Feith lost his position on the National Security Council for disclosing secret information to Israel. In 1986, 88, and 98, their closest associates were investigated over similar allegations. The latest scandal broke in 2005, when confidential documents on Iran's nuclear program were illegally passed from the Pentagon to the Israeli embassy. Once again, Feith was in the firing line.
Mr. Shukri, did anyone in your office give classified documents to Israel or Ahmed Shalom?
No. I mean, I'm, as you know, that's a matter that's being investigated. I don't know of that, but it's a matter that's under investigation.
All of these people have been investigated by the FBI at one point or another for passing secret information to Israel.
Oh dear, John Bolton. There's a ton of stuff in here. We're just going to keep flicking through it. Now, the nuclear black market. Turkish companies are mentioned in connection with assisting Pakistan's nuclear program and the transfer of dual-use technology.
Companies in Turkey have helped Pakistan's nuclear weapons program since almost the beginning of Khan's effort.
David Albright is an international expert on nuclear proliferation. He knows the dark side of Pakistan's nuclear arms race and the role Turkey plays in the nuclear black market.
Turkey's a NATO member, it's close to Europe. There are many exports to Turkey that receive very little scrutiny.
And also, I might add, when I was in Iran, this is 2016, 2017. Remember all the sanctions? There were no sanctions on there. Do you know their unemployment rate was 11%? Go and look at Iraq, then look at Turkey. Sorry, look at Iran. Look at Iraq and Syria. Look at Iran. They are treated with kids' gloves because they are the globalist asset. Well, they have missiles. Yeah, they're working real well for them, aren't they, right now? How many did they fire? I think they fired 3% of their ballistic missiles at Israel. The rest are gone to Dubai and Saudi. So I rest my case. Apparently, they didn't want to build too many of the big ones, but this was their supposed power. There was never any power. They've been sitting there like a protected panda bear from day one, and Ahmadinejad knew it. He knew it. He said, they're setting us up. They're setting us up to destroy us. And the rotten clerics and the rotten IRGC with all their London bank accounts. Did you know the Iranian banks are sitting right there in the city of London, right in the middle of the city? Still operating to this day after all these sanctions. You'll work it out eventually. So let's get down to Giza technologies and nuclear parts proliferation between Turkey, Israel, South Africa to Pakistan. And it's the same network that this we're looking at right now is the same network that did 9/11. It's identical network. It's often the same players, their sons and daughters, their spiritual heirs, to be sure, running through that same city of London, Paris, France, Frankfurt, Germany, Basel, Switzerland, or the bank accounts of Hezbollah, or the bank accounts of the IRGC, or the bank accounts of the Ayatollah, the bank accounts of Kim Jong-un of North Korea. He attends a private Swiss school when he was growing up. You'll find the same places, same bank accounts, same network. What did Kay Griggs teach us? She taught us drugs, drug money laundering, secondary weapon sales, running the terrorists, funding the terrorists, keeping the drama and the chaos. Back to the good old report from Iron Mountain. We'll have ecological disaster, reports of alien life forms, and a euphemized form of slavery using technology. Oh, fancy that. And of course, artificial enemies, created terrorism, the artificial Cold War, moving us into a new Cold War before they try to use space exploration as the new economic stimulus. I'm giving you gold here. Let's go to Giza Technologies and round and sum all this up.
Giza Technologies, a New Jersey import-export company. Its manager, Zeki Bilman, is Turkish.
I guarantee he's a Jew with heavy ties into Israel. Guaranteed.
Yes,
there are Turkish Jews, everybody. Just like there are Moroccan Jews and Yemeni Jews, and there are Syrian Jews, there are Palestinian Jews, Russian Jews. Fancy that.
Conversations monitored by the FBI were translated by Sibel Edmonds. In 2003, Giza Technologies shipped 200 triggered spark gaps, devices that could be used to detonate nuclear weapons, to an Israeli broker in Cape Town. Their export, like that of enriched uranium, was restricted to signatories of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, such as South Africa.
If you want to circumvent the system, what you do is you sell the weapon to a country that is entitled to buy it, and that country, acting collusively with you, will forge or alter the end-user certificate, so the weapon actually winds up somewhere else.
From Cape Town, Giza's detonators were sent straight to Pakistan. 6 months later, the Israeli broker was arrested. There was an inquiry, but Giza was never investigated.
Oh, offense to that.
That was a mistake, says journalist Joseph Trento.
Why wasn't Giza exposed? Well, the answer...
Because they're all on Epstein Island, bro. Probably that's why.
Giza wasn't exposed because it may have been used for other operations in the past. It may have been a front for the U.S. intelligence service, most likely Israeli intelligence from the description of the people involved. While the United States and Turkey has had a very close relationship, there's no closer relationship than the United States and Israel.
Oh, Turkey and Israel's very close relationship. Boy, they didn't mention that in the press.
Now, why would the Israelis help the Pakistanis get parts for a bomb? Well, the only way they would do that is if the United States requested it.
On the outskirts of Islamabad,
The United States requested the bomb? No, we thinks we know who was running the United States back then, don't we? Don't we? It's the America bad! America bad! I guarantee you will find the documents and there will be 700 agencies within the United States complaining about this operation, but you can guarantee the Epstein Island class were all in for it.
the recipient of Giza's detonators is now under house arrest. His name is Abdul Qadir
This
Khan,
is a 2006 documentary.
a metallurgical engineer trained in the Netherlands. He was the
Trained in
father
the
of
Netherlands.
Pakistan's nuclear program.
All of these people, these key players, are from Harvard, Yale, Cambridge, Oxford, some high-end chemical engineering school in Hamburg, or they're in the Netherlands. They're always coming out of Europe, trained in Europe.
It was launched in the late 1970s with the aim of matching India, which already had the nuclear bomb.
Companies in Turkey have helped Pakistan's nuclear weapons program since almost the beginning of Khan's effort.
And they've been helping the Iranian nuclear weapons program with Israel as well.
David Albright is an international expert on nuclear proliferation. He knows the dark side of Pakistan's nuclear arms race and the role Turkey plays in the nuclear black market.
Turkey's a NATO member. It's close to Europe. There are many exports to Turkey that receive very little scrutiny, and yet those exports were then transferred on to Pakistan. And so, and one of the things that has been very frustrating is that the United States government knew about these kinds of antics early on.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, how interesting. Did you know a lot about this? This is why old people are good. They have memories. This is a classic, easy to find now documentary, Kill the Messenger, Sibel Edmonds. I suggest you watch it and see how long and how many times this has been exposed again and again, and then it's pushed down, exposed and pushed down. No more. You see that? That's the Khan. That is Turkey's version of the F-35. What the hell are they doing developing their own stealth aircraft? Why does their own stealth aircraft have General Electric turbofan latest engines in it, which they just got extras delivered recently? Why has Turkey bought the S-400, then gave the finger to the United States and was actually building F-35 engines? And in fact, all of the European EU F-35s, when they were to be serviced, their engines all had to be sent to Turkey to have their engines serviced. So you think about how deeply integrated Turkey is in with NATO, how deeply integrated Turkey is in with the United States and Israel and that military industrial contractors. It then gives the finger after getting 200 S-400 missiles in the various systems, which have never been unpacked. They're still sitting in their packaging. I'm sure they're in the United States already for testing. The S-400 is useless, by the way, against F-35s. We've proven that, all right? It's a joke. It's nothing Russia has works, all right? I'm not saying I want to be shot at by an S-400 by any means, but the Americans just blow them out of the sky. It's just hilarious. Nothing touches US technology. But there's Turkey with their own version of stealth. Doesn't it not strike you as interesting? And then you look and you see that just about all of it is American gear. So let me get this right. Turkey gives the finger to the United States, says we'll build our own version of stealth. And we've got Pakistan interested. We've got the Saudis interested. Take that, America. And yet when you look, just about all their components are American and British BAE systems. In fact, BAE systems outside of the actual General Electric turbofan engines is way bigger than the American import. But BAE Systems gave them the finger to Turkey because Turkey wanted to keep some of the patent technology, and BAE Systems says no. So why is all these EU, UK companies, there's Turkey giving the finger to the US, and lo and behold, you know, American allies are all helping Turkey build their own. I mean, how do you even, you know, Hamas in 5-star hotels in Qatar? When you understand the globalist network, then it makes sense. Stop thinking in terms of nation states. Stop thinking in terms of the CIA, the FBI, the Mossad, even the KGB. GCHQ, MI6. Stop thinking in those terms. I know the generic things, and sometimes it's easier just to say that. It's the City of London International Banking and Finance Network, the Hoofjuden in their unholy alliance with the elites of the UK and Europe. That's the Turkish fighter. You must find that. Looks a bit like an F-35, doesn't it? There they are. That's their stealth fighter. They're building it. Giving the finger to the US. How do you give the finger to the US and then you look and just about everything in it that's Turkey's Khan stealth fighter. Merge the F-22 and the F-35 in one. Wait a minute, that's an F-22. Oh no, that's a new one. That's got the infrared sensor on the nose. That looks kind of familiar, doesn't it? So what is it really about? I'll tell you what it's really about. Technology transfer. That's why it's all full of American stuff. And Turkey is the intermediary. Whether it's Israel and Turkey sending nuclear weapons parts to Pakistan, and then the Saudis say, we want a nuclear weapon because now the Iranians are getting a nuclear weapon. And they're threatening Saudi. Saudi. Remember, he said, no, we don't worry about Israel. We got to get Saudi. That's Iran's role in the globalist dialectic. That's why they fired 80% of their missiles at Saudi and the UAE. That's why we see Turkey running around doing this stuff and you're scratching your head, because I'll tell you what they're going to do. Here's what they're going to do. Let's summarize all of this. Here's the conclusion. With all these goings on, the good thing is Turkey will be in the hands directly of the US. Iran will be in the hands of the US in time. There's still the dialectic running. There's still a lot of tension in the air. That's fine. It's all good because they've got, remember, the Straits of Hormuz is not about destroying Iran per se. It's about taking away the EU and threatening the EU energy. Remember, they can't get it from Russia anymore. That was all Rothschild. Rothschild was running Russia. With Kissinger and Gerhard Schroeder on the board of Rothschild, the board of Gazprom. They were anti-globalists. Yevgeny Primakov doctrine. Don't worry, I actually have the voiceover done. The video is being edited as we speak. And I want to end this once and for all, this Putin garbage, anti-globalist. More globalist than anybody. But it's about now the EU, which is the sworn enemy, the beast. That beast system up there. All those families of Europe are starting to panic because now they have accepted Pax Silica. They are going to be under the control of US elites. Ironically, with a big bunch of Israeli chips. That's a bit of a worry, isn't it? I'm sure it's all being worked out. Cross your fingers, cold and per. That's another story. And now China has got its own access to energy threatened, and so too does India. They have to be kept in line as well. Bottom line is the US is using its power. Now what has to happen with Russia? Putin has to be kept in power. All his best generals are dead, or his two best are under house arrest and in prison. We never hear of them since. His entire officer corps is gutted, killed on the front. His alpha males, his best commanders are all dead because they had to go to the front to see what the hell was going on because all of their equipment was 200 years old garbage. While the Slavs are definitely a highly smart people in the hard sciences, the mathematics, the engineering, all right, they don't have the industrial base. They're a backward shithole filled with drunks. That's basically what they are. But you put a Russian or a Ukrainian in the Israeli military-industrial complex or the American military-industrial complex or in Europe, boom, they're producing. These people are very talented in the mathematics and the hard sciences, and they're very good at it. Very good. It's not a Jewish thing. It's probably a hard product of that Stalinist, communist focus on the hard sciences. But that's what you have in Russia. They don't have the industrial base, all right? They need to be propped up, and that is where places like Turkey come in, making sure they can get all those chips and all that new technology to move in, new machines in there, and that will be their role. They need to rearm Russia to threaten the Europeans and make sure they spend a great big chunk of their own money on defense, and that will also get their youth in the armed forces and keep them under control. It's all about controlling local populations, getting everyone in line. That's what it's about. So with Turkey in the bag, Straits of Hormuz and Iran in the bag, you can go on about the strikes and it's so uncertain. It's totally under control. They know exactly what they're doing. Exactly what they're doing. And this will be going on for a long time. Also, they need to extend the news cycle due to certain other things. Yeah, that issue still in the background, of course, and they're desperately trying to reestablish a foundation of American strength and hegemony in the region. And then they're just going to bypass places they don't like. They're not going to invade, and they're just going to let that country sink into absolute misery and despair and burn, basically. That's what they're going to do. The US will take over Western Canada without question in the next few years. That's a done deal. Whether they'll get all of Canada, we'll wait and see. And the US is dominating. On the surface, that's a good thing, unless you would like the EU to dominate as they put you in a World Economic Forum smart city. Okay, the trouble is at the moment, I haven't seen a lot of rhetoric. I've seen some, but not a lot out of the Trump administration to explain to Americans and therefore the rest of the world, what are you doing with all these automated systems, these killbots, this AI? We know how powerful it is. What are the guardrails? You mention it every now and again, guardrails. Trump said it's very dangerous. Oh, great. But what's your actual plan? They don't tell people, do they? Because I think part of the problem is they live in a Tavistock, Edward Bernays advertising and marketing bubble, and they don't think the average person kind of notices a lot of things. Not yet anyway, but they have a plan. And then ask them big questions. We have to ask ourselves, when do we end the war on drugs, which is a war on people, the prison industrial complex, the drug money inflows into the economy? You don't need those drug money inflows. You just change it. You can change it. That's just liquid flows to keep the interbank commercial transactions happening. All right. It has to be all gone. What's the plan for that? Do we have a plan for that? It's been talked about for the past 60 years. The Politics of Heroin. Remember that book from the damn 1970s, for crying out loud? This is not new data here. What are we going to do about the drug trade and the drug money flows and the secondary weapon sales? What we just saw there with Sibel Edmonds and good old information from Kill the Messenger to do with Israel, Turkey, and the United States, which is what? The City of London. That's the network. Turkey is incidental. Israel is incidental. America is incidental. It's the City of London. Network. It's the snake, the parasite, the scorpion, the spider that is infiltrating in everywhere. You think the old KGB, the SVR, FSU, that they're all evil? Man, they're nationalists too. They've been infiltrated. It's a snake that gets in. It's just money and sex. The old standard Sabbatean Frankist move. Really universal to everywhere, but industrialized by that old John D network, Kabbalist network, the old Hofjuden out of Eastern Europe, mating, the moneylenders mating with the inbreds of the Habsburgs and the old families of Europe. That's the historical context of this group we see today. All of them are massively inbred, massively. And if you don't know, there's a ton of stuff going on at Windsor Castle with the Crown. Looks like King Charles is going to abdicate because someone worked out, you're as popular as cancer, buddy. And it looks like they're going to ditch Camilla completely. They're cutting her out. And King William is on the way. Smart move from an advertising and marketing. King William and Queen Kate would be very popular. They must have just worked that out. So King Charles will be the consort whispering in his son's ear, they plot against you, my king. And not that I give a shit about the royals, but if you're going to have a royal family, then at least put Prince William and Kate in. They would at least be popular. And it looks like he's got a heart, and I don't think he wants to kill everyone. So maybe there'll be a generational change in these EU demons, UK demons, and we'll see a generational change there. And you know what? I don't give a damn about your little royal families. If you want to get into that, good for you, but not America. I want a place where I can be free. Thank you. I'm tired of these people. I'm tired of the elites who walk around paying no tax. As Mary Silva says, and she's going to be telling it to the Heritage Foundation, you said paper ballots, Pentagon audit, Epstein, the whole network, how it all works. We want vaccine, Fauci, yeah, Bill Gates. We want to talk all about that. We want all that out there. All of it. And of course, Pax Silica and the Israeli role and the penetration of the United States. That all has to be accounted for. You can start with rhetoric. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope this gives you a little bit of a better idea about Turkey, and it's not all bad, but there's a lot of shenanigans going on as they rearrange the grand chessboard. Okay, I leave you with the final word from the President, Marco Rubio. Talk again soon.
You know, Marco, life is good. My kids are making a fortune in 700 different scams. Rabbi Schneerson is so proud of me looking up from hell. Everyone is distracted by lowbrow Somali and illegal immigrant scams. No one remembers the multi-trillion-dollar scams of Wall Street. I'm kicking butt in the Middle East. Can it get any better?
I know, boss. The midterms, the price of eggs, people can't afford rents, young couples can't afford a house. All your friends on Wall Street are making out like bandits. Billionaires happily laugh and stash their profits in tax havens all over the world, and here at home, I think we need to rethink a little strategy. Maybe live up to all our promises, especially paper ballots, a Pentagon audit, the vax, and the Epstein files, of course.
Shut up, Marco. I never asked for your opinion. Loser. Dumbass. What do the polls say? What about Hannity?
At least my hands are in accord with my body size. You want to go there, big guy? Let's roll.
What is our common bond truly? Freedom. Freedom. Without freedom, you can't be a Christian no matter what denomination you belong to. You can't be a Buddhist. You can't own a donut shop. You can't drive from here to Oregon. You can't be an American because that's what it's all about, and it's the only thing that it's all about. Nothing else. Nothing else. It's about freedom. Only freedom.